In the city of Abuja, one name echoed louder than most: Deji Afolayan. He was the kind of man people whispered about in boardrooms and admired in glossy magazines. A billionaire by 35, owner of multiple companies, and a man whose charm was as little as his business moves. Deji was more than a mogul. He was a symbol of power. Women wanted him, men envied him, and the press adored him. But beneath his flawless smile lay a man who trusted almost no one except Kunle Onemisi. Kunle wasn't just his best friend, he was his lawyer, his right-hand man, his brother in everything but not blood. For years, Kunle had handled Deji's contract, protected his empire, and celebrated his victories. To Deji, Kunle was family, but family could also betray you. Sharon Oka, a stunning socialite who carried herself like she was born for the spotlight. She was beautiful, ambitious, and very calculating. For months, Deji has been swept off his feet by her charm. To the outside world, they were Abuja's golden couple. Invitations poured in, magazine headlined them, and Sharon Oka thrived in the attention. She wanted the title Mrs. Afolayan not just for love, but for status. Deji, though cautious, allowed himself to believe that she was the one. And when Kule suggested that they make it official, Deji agreed. But when Deji thought he was planning a wedding to Sharon Oka, fate and betrayal had other plans. One afternoon, in Kunle Onimisi's office, a package arrived. Inside were the court's wedding documents prepared for Deji Afolayan's marriage. Kunle reviewed them, then handed them to his PA for dispatch. But the PA, rushing and distracted, noticed the name Sharon Uka on one of the files. Without realizing the error, or perhaps thinking it was of Deji's businesses, she sent the package straight to Sharon Uka, a quiet, hard-working personal assistant who occasionally handled documents for Deji's father. Sharon Uka received the package at her modest desk, believing it was a routine file for corporate approval. She signed where indicated and returned it without reading. By the time Kunle realized what had happened, it was too late. The papers were legally binding and the traps were set. The Federal Marriage Registry in Abuja was buzzing with activity. Deji chose a court wedding, private, elegant, no unnecessary spectacle. He arrived looking impeccable in a navy blue suit, his aura commanding the room. Sharon Oka, in her white gown, walked in glowing with triumph. To her, this was the day she would finally become Mrs. Afolayan. The registrar cleared his throat and began reading from the official book. His voice was firm and deliberate. This marriage, once entered into, is valid under Nigerian law. By the Marriage Act, there can be no annulment of this union within the first 1 year. Both parties must live together as husband and wife for at least 12 months before a petition for divorce may be considered. Deji frowned but remained calm. Sharon Oka smiled, convinced the law had only strengthened her hold. Then the registrar's voice rang out like thunder. We are gathered here today to witness the wedding solemnization of Mr. Deji Afolayan and Mrs. Sharon Uka. The hall went silent. What? Sharon Oka snapped, her voice sharp. It is Oka. My name is Sharon Oka, my lord. The register flipped the pages. No, madam. All official documents read Sharon Uka. The signatures match. This marriage is legally binding between Mr. Afolayan and Mrs. Sharon Uka. Gaps filled the courtroom. Deji's face hardened, fury flashing in his eyes. He turned sharply to Kunle. Kunle, what the hell is this? Kunle stuttered, sweat rolling down his temple. Sir, Kunle, I can explain. It must have been a mix-up. Deji cut him off, snapping at the register. Can this be annulled now? But the register shook his head. No, sir. The law is clear. There can be no annulment within a year. You must live together as husband and wife for 12 months before divorce proceedings can begin. Until then, this marriage stands. At the end of the room, Sharon Uka, the quiet assistant who had unknowingly signed papers, stood frozen, her eyes wide in shock. She hadn't come dressed for a wedding. She hadn't even known she was a bride. Yet the registrar closed the file, adjusted his glasses, and declared with finality, I hereby join you, Mr. Deji Afolayan, and you, Mrs. Sharon Uka, as husband and wife under the laws of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The air in the room shifted. Sharon Oka's dreams shattered. Kunle's betrayals deepened, and Deji Afolayan, Abuja's most powerful bachelor, has just been forced into a marriage he never wanted, trapped by the law and by those he thought he could trust. The mansion in Maitama had never felt so cold. Its marble floors gleamed, the chandelier sparkled, and the staff moved in silence, but the tension inside was thick enough to choke on. Deji sat at the head of the long dining table. Untouched foot in front of him, across from him sat Sharon Uka, his new bride. Though she looked nothing like one, she wore a simple gown, her hair tied back, her eyes cast down as if she wished she could vanish into the chair. She didn't want this marriage and any more than he did. But the law had spoken, and Abuja society had already heard the news. There was no escape for them. Deji's voice finally cut through the silence. You realize this is your fault, don't you? His tone was sharp, almost cruel. Sharon Uka looked obstructed. My fault? I didn't even know I was signing marriage papers. I thought it was work. He slammed his hand on the table, his eyes blazing. You should have read it. Do you know what you have done? Do you know what people are saying out there? I'm married to my father's assistant. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she held her ground. I didn't ask for this. I don't want to be your wife either. They sat in silence again, their anger heavy in the room. From the doorway, one of the house staff peered nervously, unsure whether to clear the plate. Deji waved them away. Listen to me, Deji said, his voice low now, almost threatening. We may have to stay married for a year, but don't mistake this for love. Don't think for a second that you belong here. Sharon Uka swallowed hard. She wanted to argue, to defend herself, but the truth was she felt like a stranger in her own skin. She had grown up ordinary, middle class, a quiet woman, used to working behind the scenes. Now she was sitting in the home of one of Nigeria's wealthiest men, his wife in name only. Meanwhile, across town, Kunle Onimisi and Sharon Oka met in secret. Sharon Oka was livid. She slammed her designer bag on the table of the fine dining. You ruined everything, Kunle. Everything. Do you know how humiliating that was? Do you know what it means that my own name wasn't even on the papers? Kunle tried to calm her down. His own nerves were frail. I didn't mean for this to happen. It was a clerical error, a stupid mistake. A mistake, Sharon Oka snapped. Do you know who Deji is? Do you know what we have lost? He's married to her now, that useless assistant. Kunle leaned closer, his voice cold. Relax, it's only a year. Once the time is up, he will divorce her. We can still get what we want. We just need to play smarter. But Sharon Oka wasn't confused. You promised me I'll be Mrs. Afolayan by now. Do you know how many people are laughing at me? Kunle grabbed her hand firmly. Trust me, we're not done yet. Neither of them knew that Deji's father had already grown suspicious and was quietly setting his own plans in motion. Chief Afolayan, Deji's father, was no ordinary man. Age had not dulled his instincts, and wealth has not blinded him to betrayal. He had built his empire on trust, but he also knew trust could be broken. After the court fiasco, his heart grew heavy. Something didn't add up. He called in an old friend, an ex-police officer turned private investigator. I need you to watch them, he said. Coolly at that girl Sharon Oka. There is more to this than what we see. The investigator nodded. Leave it to me. By the time I'm done, their secrets will walk out into the light. And so the trap for the betrayers began. Back in the mansion, life grew complicated. Deji and Sharon Uka lived under one roof but in two different worlds. At first, Deji ignored her completely. He buried himself in work, avoided meals at home, and treated her like a ghost. Sharon, in turn, kept to herself, moving quietly through the house, too afraid to offend him. But life has its way of pulling them into situations they could not escape. One night, the generator failed during a heavy rainstorm. The mansion was plunged into darkness, and Sharon, terrified of thunder, cried out when the lightning cracked the sky. Deji found her curled in the living room, trembling. For a moment, he saw not an enemy, but a woman, fragile, human, just as trapped as he was. He handed her a blanket, his voice softer than usual. It's just thunder, it will pass. Their eyes met briefly, and something unspoken lingered there. But Deji quickly looked away, reminding himself of his anger and fright. Still, little by little, the walls between them began to crack. Kunle and Sharon Oka grew bolder. Thinking they had time on their side, they began meeting in private restaurants and hostel lounges across Abuja. What they didn't know was that every word, every glance, every plan was being watched. The private investigator, posing as a friendly businessman, struck up conversations with Kunle. He gained his trust little by little, pretending to admire his brilliance as a lawyer. Sharon Oka, vain and overconfident, didn't suspect him either. One evening, over drinks, Kunle leaned in close to Sharon Oka. "Don't worry," he whispered. "A year isn't long. Once Deji files for divorce, everything will fall into place. He'll be broken, and then we'll sweep in. All of his money is going to be ours." It's stated in the contract that after annulment, 80% of his wealth will go to his wife. All of it will be yours, don't worry. The investigator's hidden camera caught it all. Meanwhile, in the mansion, things were shifting. Deji had been cold, angry, resentful, but Sharon Uka, she was different from Sharon Oka in every way. She was humble, soft-spoken, hardworking. She cooked when the staffs were away. She greeted the gate man by name. She prayed quietly in the morning. And despite everything, Deji noticed. One night, after too much wine, his bitterness collided with loneliness. Harsh words turned into vulnerability, and vulnerability turned into a night neither of them expected. By morning, Deji was furious with himself. It was a mistake, he told her flatly. "Don't think this means anything." But Sharon Oka sat silently, touching her stomach with a strange knowing look. Weeks later, Sharon Oka stood before him trembling. Um, Deji, I have something to tell you. I'm pregnant. Deji froze. The words echoed like a gunshot in his mind. Pregnant? His anger boiled over. This can't be happening. We are meant to be divorced in a year. You can't be pregnant. No, 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 no. Her eyes filled with tears. Deji, this is as much as yours as it is mine. Deji stormed out, leaving her alone. But in the quiet of his study, staring at the empire he had built, he felt a heaviness pressing down on him. His life was no longer his own. Chief Afolayan decided the time had come. He called Deji, Sharon Uka, and the entire family together in the ancestral home. The investigator arrived quietly, carrying his laptop. Chief Afolayan's voice was firm, his presence commanding. "There has been too much confusion, too much pain. Today we end the lies." The room fell silent as the investigator played the recording. On the screen, Kunle and Sharon Oka appeared laughing in the dim light of a lounge. Their voices were clear. Kunle, "He trusts us too much, that's his weakness." Sharon Oka said, "Once the year is over, the divorce will be simple and he will get married to me and all his money will be ours." To Deji's face, "I am the loyal lawyer behind his back. I'm the one taking everything." Gaps filled the room. Deji sat frozen, his jaw clenched, his heart shattering with every word. When the video ended, Chief Afolayan's voice thundered. This is the truth. The woman you thought you loved and the friend you called a brother, they planned your destruction. Sharon Oka tried to protest, her voice shaking. It's not true. That video, it's not true. It's a prank. But Kunle's silence condemned them both. Deji rose to his feet, his voice breaking with rage. I gave you everything, Kunle. My trust, my secret, my loyalty. And you? His voice cracked. You stabbed me in the back. Kunle lowered his head ashamed. Deji turned to Sharon Oka. Her beauty suddenly looked fake. And you? What did you think love was? A transaction? A contract? Tears streamed down her eyes, but Deji had already looked away. Chief Afolayan spoke with finality. The law will take its course, but in this family, betrayal is not easily forgiven. Security escorted Sharon, Oka, and Kunle out. Their empire of lies had collapsed. In the weeks that followed, Deji slowly began to see Sharon Uka differently. She hadn't planned any of this, yet she bore the shame, the insult, and now the burden of carrying his child. She was strong in her ways. Sharon Oka had never been genuine and real. One evening, he found her in the garden, humming softly, her hands on her growing belly. For the first time in months, he smiled. I was wrong about you, he said quietly. You didn't ruin my life. You may have saved it. Her eyes met his, uncertain but hopeful. Deji, what are you saying? He took a deep breath. I'm saying that maybe this was never a mistake. Maybe this was the new beginning we all needed. By the time the year ended, the bitterness between them had melted into something called unexpected love. They had their baby boy. The mansion that once felt like a prison now echoed with laughter. When their child was born, Deji held the baby in his arms and whispered, You changed everything. Sharon Uka was no longer the accidental bride. She was his partner, his wife in truth, and the woman who stood by him when the world tried to tear him down. As for Kunle and Sharon Oka, they disappeared from the glistering circles of Abuja, their names now spoken only as a warning. Betrayal never wins in the end. The moral of this story is power and wealth may attract people to you, but not all who come close to you are truly your friends. Sometimes life mistakes and life mistakes can be a blessing in disguise, and the people we overlook may turn out to be the ones who stand by us when it matters the most. And so the story of Deji Afolayan teaches us that betrayal will always be exposed and true loyalty shines brightest when tested. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more African folk tales filled with wisdom, suspense, and lessons for life. Thank you.